right, history enthusiasts, let's jump right into ancient Greece today. A civilization that really shaped so much of our modern world.
It really did. Foundational stuff.
Yeah, and we've gathered a fascinating collection here. Historical accounts, archaeology, philosophy texts.
Real mix, yeah.
Our goal is basically to pull out the most vital insights from these sources, give you a kind of shortcut to understanding this vibrant, complex, and honestly, often surprising era. Get ready for some truly unexpected facts and maybe a few aha moments along the way.
Absolutely. It's an incredible body of material we'll be digging into. We're sifting through this, rich tapestry of information.
Yeah.
Not just looking at what happened, but trying to get at why it mattered and how these ancient experiences, well, they still resonate, even now.
Right.
What's really striking is just the sheer breadth of it all, covering everything from, daily life right up to these grand philosophies that still influence us.
So where do we kick off this journey? Our sources, they first lead us to the Bronze Age in Crete. We're talking roughly 3400 to 1100 BC.
Yeah, the Minoan period.
What did daily life actually look like in these incredibly early centers?
Well, if you look at the Minoan period, especially places like Hagia Triada or Eastern Crete, you find these surprisingly developed towns, really urban centers.
Developed how?
Take Gumea, for instance. It was so well equipped, metalworking, shoemaking, vase-making shops. The excavators actually called it Hemecanicae Polis, the town of machinery.
Wow.
Yeah, and we also find homes, proper paved streets, good drainage systems, even multi-story houses. Some had 23 rooms, and windows with these red panes. We don't even know what material they were.
That's amazing detail.
It is, and people adapted, slept on roofs in the summer heat, used oil lamps for light inside. Pretty sophisticated setup.
A town of machinery millennia ago.
Yeah.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? Sounds incredibly advanced for its time.
It absolutely was.
So, given all that prosperity, what do our sources suggest happened? Why did it decline? Was it one big thing or more complex?
It seems more complex. The sources, they propose several fascinating theories for Crete's decay. Everything from environmental stuff like vanished forests leading to just stony waste.
Okay.
To maybe population control measures that went too far, perhaps leaving reproduction to the quote, failures. Or maybe internal strife, disruptions to trade, especially with Egypt after Akhenaten.
Right, the trade links were key.
Very key. Other ideas, increased wealth and luxury, maybe sapping their vitality, their will to defend themselves, or a dependence on sea control that became a weakness. Even earthquakes or, a revolution are suggested.
So not one simple answer.
No, definitely not a single cause. It looks like a complex interplay of things.
Yeah.
The real insight here, I think, is that even these highly advanced societies, they aren't immune to collapse.
Right.
And their downfall often stems not from, one big catastrophe, but this mix of environmental pressures, internal social choices, external shifts. It's a powerful lesson in societal resilience that, still resonates.
Definitely. Okay, so from Crete, the story shifts to the Greek mainland. This is where the legends we all know start to really merge with archaeology.
Exactly.
And this is where it gets super interesting. The story of Heinrich Schliemann. What was it about him?
Schliemann, yeah. Born in 1822, he was just utterly captivated by Homer's stories of Troy right from childhood.
Really young.
Apparently announced at age 8 his plan to rediscover the lost city.
No way.
Yes. And he wasn't, trained as an archaeologist initially. He became this wildly successful merchant, made a fortune, retired young, 36.
36.
Yeah. And then just dedicated his life and his money to chasing that childhood dream.
Incredible.
And his digs led him to Mycenae. Homer famously called it a well-built city, broad-avenued and abounding in gold.
And did he find gold?
Oh yes, at Mycenae they found exactly that. These massive cyclopean walls, the famous Lion Gate, major palace ruins.
So maybe not Agamemnon's actual bones, but he found, as they say, their weight in silver and gold.
Aha, precisely.
What kind of art did they find there? What window does it give us into their world?
Well, the highest art form at Mycenae, it was definitely in metals. Schliemann dug up jewelry in just spendthrift quantities.
Wow.
Intricate stud buttons, these amazing intaglios, carved gems or seals, showing vivid scenes of hunting, war, even piracy.
Gives you a real feel for their life.
It does. One really striking find was this shining silver cow's head with gold horns. But the most peculiar things were these golden masks.
The famous masks, right?
Yeah, apparently laid over the faces of dead royalty. Schliemann, maybe being a bit too optimistic, ascribed one to Agamemnon himself,
Even though?
even though some people thought it looked more like a cat's face.
Haha. Okay, so what's the big takeaway then when we look at these early Greeks, Mycenae, the Cycladic Islands?
I think the key insight is that these early civilizations, they were far from primitive. They were complex, interconnected, highly skilled societies.
Right.
They were builders, innovative artists, clearly had sophisticated social structures. Look at the Cycladic Islands. Rugged place, sure, but rich in marble and metal.
And connected.
Very connected. They show how this whole prehistoric Asian world was linked up, with Minoan and later Mycenaean styles influencing each other. It reveals this evolving, dynamic, early Greek world that really laid the groundwork for everything that came after.
Okay, so let's move forward in time. Two really distinct city-states pop up, Sparta and Athens. Such a fascinating contrast in how you can structure a society.
Huge contract, yeah.
Let's start with Sparta. The sources, they paint this very specific picture of their Lycurgan code. What was that all about?
Sparta's system, attributed to this legendary figure Lycurgus. It was incredibly disciplined, supposedly derived from edicts from the oracle at Delphi.
The oracle.
Right. And they borrowed some institutions admired from Crete. The government itself, it had two kings.
Two kings.
Yeah, two hereditary kings, plus a senate, the Gerousia, 28 elders. They originated laws, acted as a supreme court.
Okay.
And then an assembly, the Apella. All male citizens over 30 could go accept or reject laws.
Yeah.
But here's the catch. They couldn't discuss them.
Just yes or no, no debate.
Basically, and there's even this wild story about a young aristocrat actually striking out Lycurgus's eye while resisting these reforms.
Wow. Talk about intense resistance.
Tells you something, right?
Yeah.
And Lycurgus famously shot back at someone asking for democracy. He said, begin, my friend, by setting it up in your own family.
Ouch. That says a lot about their philosophy.
It really does. Very hierarchical, very ordered.
So we have that kind of rigid foundation. How do they actually cultivate this legendary martial strength, starting from childhood?
Oh, it was a lifelong process. Spartan boys were taken from their families at age 7, raised by the state in these military and scholastic classes.
This state raised from 7.
Exactly. And the sole focus was martial courage and worth. Totally different from Athens, which valued athletic skill or, form.
Right.
Spartans played games nude. Elders would provoke quarrels just to test their vigor, and they had this annual scourging ritual at the altar of Artemis Orthia.
Scourging as a test.
As a test of endurance, yeah. At 12, they lost their underclothing, allowed only one garment year-round, slept outdoors even in winter, lived in barracks until they were 30.
That is incredibly harsh.
Incredibly. But Plato, interestingly, he saw the outlines of his own ideal utopia in Sparta's rigid order. He admired that unwavering commitment to collective discipline.
Effective for creating soldiers, clearly, but the sources we have, they also offer a pretty sharp critique of this whole system. Was that a common view back then, or more looking back?
That's a good question. It seems like while contemporaries admired their military prowess, the critique about the cost was also understood. It undeniably produced excellent soldiers, right? Some of the best hoplites, heavy infantry in the ancient world.
For sure.
But it came at this significant cost. The Spartan Code, it effectively killed nearly all capacity for the things of the mind.
So arts philosophy.
Exactly. Arts that flourished before the code really took hold, they largely died out after about 550 BC. Spartans were basically excluded from commerce, travel, science, literature, philosophy.
Wow.
They became, as one source puts it, a nation of excellent hoplites with the mentality of a lifelong infantryman. It really raises that question, doesn't it? How much does focusing on one strength, like military power, inevitably cost you in other areas?
Yeah, the trade-offs.
Exactly. Spartan King Aegisthus summed it up, didn't he? Inquire only if it is useful, for whenever an action is useful to our country, it is right. Pure pragmatism. It forces us to think about the trade-offs societies still make.
That is a powerful contrast, because just a day's ride away, Athens was building something totally different.
Night and day, really.
How did their values, their society, diverge so much from Sparta's rigidity?
Athens, in stark contrast to Sparta's austerity, it was described as broad in scope and yet intense in action, open to every new idea and eager for intercourse with the world, tolerant, varied, complex, luxurious, innovating, skeptical, imaginative, poetical, turbulent, free.
That's quite a list.
It is. This was a civilization that really valued self-development. Their ideal man, the Kalokagathos.
How do you spell that?
Kalokagathos. Gathos. It meant someone who combined beauty and justice, but they frankly valued other things too. Ability, fame, wealth, friends, alongside virtue.
A more rounded ideal, maybe.
Perhaps. Herodotus, the early historian, he just observed simply that freedom is an excellent thing. What's so insightful is how these two places, so close geographically, chose such radically different paths.
Right.
Sparta, discipline and military might, sacrificing intellectual freedom. Athens, embracing individual development and open thought, even with all its turbulence. It's this foundational lesson about the trade-offs between order and liberty that we still debate.
And Athens's journey to that democratic ideal, it wasn't smooth sailing either. The material shows these early struggles, especially the clash between rich and poor, which led to Solon's big reforms.
Exactly. That conflict was intense. Athenian society was really facing potential revolution because of debt and these huge wealth gaps.
So Solon stepped in.
He did. His Saisakteia, which means shaking off of burdens, was absolutely critical. He canceled debts, freed people who'd been enslaved for debt, and actually forbade future debt slavery.
That's massive.
Huge. And it's fascinating, there's a detail that some of his own friends apparently got wind of his plans beforehand and bought up mortgaged land really cheap, later claiming their fortunes were from immemorial antiquity.
Insider trading, ancient Greek style.
Sort of, though Solon himself, he was a heavy creditor, so he actually lost money by his own law. But the act itself, it definitely saved Attica from revolution, fundamentally changed their path.
Okay, and then fast forward to Pericles. What about the actual day-to-day working of Athenian democracy then? How did that system function?
Under Pericles, it was incredibly engaged. Designed to prevent corruption, too. You had the Council of 500, chosen completely by lot.
By lot, like a lottery.
Exactly. 50 members from each of the 10 tribes serving for just 1 year, and you couldn't be reelected immediately. Broad participation was the goal.
Okay.
And get this, every single morning, a new chairman for the day was chosen by lot from those 50.
Every day a new president.
Effectively, yeah. Athens had 300 different presidents each year. The idea was to really reduce the concentration of power and potential for graft.
That's wild.
It is. And Pericles himself, despite holding immense political sway, reportedly added nothing to his personal wealth over his career. He was reelected for almost 30 years.
Amazing.
This period, it really shows Greek civilization at its best, you could argue. Democracy bringing that vigor and participation, but still having a kind of guiding aristocracy providing order and, taste.
All right, so beyond politics and daily life, the sources then really light up about the creative explosion in ancient Greece. Art, literature, the birth of philosophy itself.
Yeah, a truly incredible outpouring.
And what's fascinating here is the role of Miletus in kicking off this whole intellectual revolution.
Miletus, right. In the 6th century BC, it was the richest city in the Greek world. And that status as a melting pot, that was key.
How so?
You had Ionians from Attica intermarrying with the widows of native Calirian males, creating this real fusion of blood, this dynamic environment. Even under a dictator like Thrasybulus, it led to this peak in industry and trade, and crucially, the birth of Greek philosophy.
So prosperity and mixing cultures were the spark.
Seems like it. The insight here is that these intellectual breakthroughs, they often happen at these crossroads, right? Where diverse cultures and economic prosperity meet, where new ideas can mingle freely and challenge the old ways.
Makes sense. So Miletus was this intellectual crucible. Who were some of the first thinkers to emerge? What were their big, groundbreaking ideas?
Well, you have figures like Thales, for instance. He's often called the first philosopher because he was among the first to move beyond myths and propose a fundamental natural principle for the cosmos.
And for Thales, that was?
Water. He thought water was the underlying substance of everything.
Okay.
His fellow Milesian, Anaximander, took it further. He suggested the Earth was originally fluid and even proposed a kind of theory of evolution.
Evolution. Back then?
Yeah, arguing land animals were once fish and humans evolved from fish. Pretty radical stuff.
Wow.
Then Anaximenes, who was Anaximander's pupil, he held that air was the first principle, this pervasive spirit or pneuma of the world. An idea that, would later resonate deeply with Stoicism and even Christian thought.
So they're searching for the fundamental stuff of reality.
Exactly. And this era wasn't just philosophy. It also produced Greece's earliest prose writing and historiography. A massive shift from poetry being the main way to express complex ideas towards a more rational, empirical way of looking at the world.
Beyond these early philosophers, Greece obviously gave us some literary giants. Tell us about the 10th muse. Who was that?
That would be Sappho of Lesbos. Known simply as the poetess.
Right.
born around 611 BC. She actually experienced political exile, but she was clearly involved in public life from a young age, either through politics or just her poetry.
And what made her poetry so special?
Well, she's described as small, maybe frail, but possessing this brilliant mind, a really passionate nature, and a charm that just drew people to her. The poet Alcaeus, who was exiled with her, apparently sent her a romantic invitation, and her witty, direct response to him is famously preserved in the sources. It's her ability to just distill these intense, complex emotions into such perfect, lyrical verse that earned her that legendary title.
Amazing. And the arts, it wasn't just poetry and individual genius, right? It was deeply woven into daily life, big public projects, especially architecture and sculpture.
Absolutely. Greek architecture really distinguished itself by taking the column just a support structure and turning it into this element of profound beauty, developing those distinct Doric and Ionic styles we still recognize.
Instantly recognizable.
Right, and think of the Parthenon. It wasn't just columns. It combined incredible relief sculpture in its metopes and friezes, creating this harmonious whole.
And Pericles funded this heavily.
Incredibly lavishly. Athenian building under Pericles saw enormous sums invested. The Parthenon alone cost something like the equivalent of 4.2 million in 1938 US dollars.
Wow.
And the total spending on public buildings, statues, painting between 447 and 431 BC was maybe around $57.6 million in those terms. This massive public spending didn't just create masterpieces, it significantly boosted the city's prosperity, employed thousands, shows how art and the economy could really feed each other.
Which brings us nicely to the Greek games. Not just sports, but a huge cultural force, right? And connected to art.
Precisely. The Pan-Hellenic Games, especially the Olympics, held every 4 years, starting in 776 BC. That's actually the first definite date we have in Greek history.
76 BC.
Got it. Yeah. They were a major cultural event. A sacred truce was declared across Greece during the festival, so everyone could travel and participate safely.
A truce for games. Nice.
It really was. And the physical perfection of the athletes, who often competed nude, gave sculptors like Myron and Polykleitos these amazing opportunities to study the human body in motion and repose.
So that directly influenced the statues.
Directly. It shaped the whole ideal of Greek statuary. It was this unique fusion of athletics, religion, and art. You see it in things like Myron's discus thrower or the figures from the temple pediments at Olympia.
Like the battle scene.
Yeah, the struggle of the Lapiths and Centaurs. There's this depiction of a bride being snatched away, but the artist portrays her with such calm repose amidst the chaos. It's startlingly beautiful, a real testament to that ideal.
Okay, but this golden age, it wasn't all smooth sailing and beautiful statues. This raises a crucial question. What about the challenges? The Greco-Persian War, for instance, that sounds like a massive test.
Oh, huge. The Greco-Persian War. One source argues it was maybe the most momentous conflict in European history. Bold claim. But
Why? What makes it so important?
because, the argument goes, it made Europe possible. It basically secured Western civilization's economic and political freedom from Persian dominance. It allowed Greece to have its first real, large-scale experiment in liberty.
So a defining moment for the West.
Absolutely. And it also, interestingly, showed this moment of true greatness of soul from Xerxes, the Persian king.
How so?
Well, the Spartans had killed Darius's heralds earlier, which was a major breach of custom. But when some Spartans later offered themselves up for punishment to Xerxes, he refused to retaliate in kind, unlike the Lacedaemonians, as the source notes.
Interesting twist.
It is. But the victory itself, for the Greeks, especially Athens, it massively fueled their pride, their prosperity, and directly led to that cultural flourishing we were just talking about. It shows how these existential threats, sometimes they act like a crucible, right? Forging a society's identity, pushing it to new heights.
But that golden age, it wasn't without its internal issues, its paradoxes. As we dig into the sources, you find the society grappling with some really complex moral questions, sometimes with shocking honesty.
Yeah, it reveals this fascinating duality. We tend to idealize ancient Greece, but you have thinkers like Thucydides, who was influenced by the Sophists.
They were the rhetoric guys, right? Questioning morality.
Exactly. And Thucydides reports discussions where people openly state that the weaker should be subject to the stronger, or that no one has ever allowed the cry for justice to hinder his ambition. Realpolitik, basically.
Wow, straight up.
Straight up. And the Spartans, we saw their pragmatism with King Agesilaus. Inquire only if it is useful. If it's useful to our country, it is right. Full stop.
So less hypocrisy than today, maybe.
Well, one source makes that exact point. It says, "Our greater delicacy makes it offensive to us to preach what we practice." It's a striking difference in candor, highlighting that their foundational ideals existed alongside this sometimes brutal pragmatism.
And this internal tension, this pragmatism, it eventually boils over into major political upheaval.
Yeah.
Tragically, the Peloponnesian War.
Yeah, the big one, Athens versus Sparta.
How did that war impact Greek civilization's path?
It was just a profound tragedy. Here they are, having defeated the mighty Persian Empire, the King of Kings, and then Greece just turns on itself.
It assumes itself.
Exactly. The sources call it a prolonged national suicide. The Athenian assembly, once so noble, apparently degenerated, became ruthless towards the weak, cringed before power, started taxing property to the point of crushing initiative.
So democracy started to eat itself.
That's the powerful argument made, that Greek freedom, paradoxically, destroyed itself through this internal conflict. And the subsequent order, forged by figures like Philip of Macedon and Alexander, ultimately preserved Greek civilization, but under very different, less free terms. It's a really sobering lesson on the fragility of even the most vibrant societies.
And maybe the most poignant symbol of this whole turbulent period is the trial and death of Socrates.
Absolutely, a defining moment.
What was the core of the case against him? And what does his story tell us about Athens at that specific moment?
Socrates' death, 399 BC. It was truly tragic and pivotal. He was 70 years old, but the restored democracy saw him as a danger.
Why? What was he doing?
Well, Aeneas, a powerful figure, brought the main accusation, partly maybe for old debating defeats, but also for the alleged corruption of Aeneas' own son, who apparently became a drunkard after hanging out with Socrates.
Ouch. Personal and political.
Exactly. And the irony is, Socrates had actually refused to obey the 30 tyrants, that brutal oligarchy that briefly ruled Athens. He'd even denounced Critias, one of their leaders.
So he wasn't anti-democratic.
Not overtly, but figures like Critias and Alcibiades, who were seen as problematic and had been his students or lovers, were used against him. Aeneas and others felt Socrates' constant questioning undermined religious faith and democratic institutions.
This whole what is it method.
Right. His relentless what is it inquiries and his famous statement that the unexamined life is not worth living. He was often lumped in with the sophists, but he was different. He despised rhetoric, aimed to strengthen morality, and crucially refused payment.
That was a big deal, refusing payment.
Huge. In the end, accused of impiety and corrupting the youth, he was condemned. He quietly left Athens, saying he wouldn't give the city a chance to sin a second time against philosophy.
Wow, what a line.
It really is. The deep insight there, I think, is how often societies, especially in times of fear and instability, can turn against the very figures who push them towards self-reflection and critical thinking.
A timeless problem. Okay, so after that turmoil, Alexander the Great enters the scene, reshapes the Greek world, spreads Hellenistic culture everywhere.
Monumental impact.
But the sources also hint at the huge personal cost of this expansion for Alexander himself. What stands out there?
Yeah, his conquests were world-changing, but his personal life seems marked by profound tragedy. The death of his closest companion, Hephaestion, in Ecbatana, it just shattered him.
How did he react?
He grieved uncontrollably, cut off his hair, refused food, and then, really shockingly, ordered an entire tribe, the Cassians, to be slain as a sacrifice to Hephaestion's ghost.
Good grief.
Yeah. He was apparently haunted by the thought that Achilles had not long survived Patroclus. It's this stark reminder that even these almost mythical historical figures, they wrestled with immense personal loss, sometimes with devastating consequences for others.
Which, ironically, brings us to another giant figure facing turmoil after Alexander's death, Aristotle.
Right, Alexander's tutor.
What happened to him in the wake of Alexander's massive, world-changing life and death? What was Aristotle's ultimate legacy?
Well, Aristotle, who had tutored the young Alexander, found himself in trouble in Athens after Alexander died. He faced an accusation of impiety.
Again, like Socrates?
Similar charge, yeah. Accused of offering divine honors to a former slave who was also his father-in-law. So, like Socrates, he quietly left Athens. His reason, unwilling to let Athens sin a second time against philosophy.
He used the same line?
Echoed it, certainly. He died shortly after leaving, and despite some of his later preserved works being described rather unkindly as ashes of scholarship and inimitably dull.
Harsh.
Very. But his real legacy is undeniable. He basically laid the groundwork for countless fields of study. He coined terms we still use constantly: principle, category, energy.
Wow, fundamental terms.
Absolutely. He believed the highest duty of the state wasn't military training, but educating citizens for the right use of peace. His thought fundamentally organized knowledge, really setting the stage for centuries of Western intellectual inquiry.
Okay, so as the era of the independent Greek city-states fades, what were the broader shifts happening across this wider Hellenistic world that Alexander created? What signals a new era?
You see really significant changes across the board. Population dynamics, for one. Infanticide, which was disturbingly often condoned by philosophers as a way to control population numbers.
Really, philosophers condoned it.
Some did, yeah, for population control. It actually led to death rates exceeding birth rates in many areas. Philip V of Macedon even had to forbid family limitation just to boost his kingdom's manpower.
Incredible. Well,
Economically, places like Ptolemaic Egypt developed these large-scale state monopolies on key resources like oil and papyrus. They even started underselling Greek handicrafts by using slave labor more systematically. You see early forms of state-controlled economies emerging.
and religiously.
A profound shift there, too. The old Olympian gods, their cults, started giving way to new, often Eastern deities and mystery religions. These often accepted everyone, regardless of social status, and offered more personal salvation, promises of eternal life. It reflects this profound cultural mixing and adaptation as Greek influence spread, fundamentally changing both Greek and non-Greek societies.
And then finally, we arrive at the end of Greek independence altogether, under Rome.
Yeah.
How did that final transition happen?
The final act really was in 146 BC. The Roman general Mummius captured Corinth. Corinth was a major commercial rival to Rome.
So Rome took it out.
Brutally. The city was burned, men were slaughtered, women and children sold into slavery. There are these stories of Roman soldiers using priceless, world-famous paintings as boards for their dice games.
Oh, that hurts to hear.
It's a stark image, isn't it? A display of indifference, perhaps, to that Greek artistic legacy. After Corinth, Greece was formally united with Macedonia as a Roman province.
Though Athens and Sparta got special treatment.
They did. Spared tribute, likely as a nod to their historical fame, but independence was gone. The sources reflect on this, noting, kind of melancholically, that the turbulent cities had at last found peace, a powerful way to frame the end of that era.
What a journey through ancient Greece. Just incredible, from the tech marvels of Minoan Gornia
Yeah.
to the stark contrast between Spartan discipline and Athenian freedom,
Right.
and those intellectual revolutions starting in Miletus. It's so clear this civilization was anything but simple. It was vibrant, dynamic, full of these contradictions.
Absolutely. And while that political independence of the city-states eventually did give way, the sources make this really powerful case for the enduring legacy, especially of Greek philosophy, calling it the art of logic and the logic of art.
I like that.
Yeah, it reminds us that all the dreams and wisdom of philosophy are here, in the age and land of its birth, really setting the stage for so much of Western thought.
So what does all this mean for you, our listener, today? I mean, the challenges they faced, balancing individual freedom and collective order, navigating societal divisions, the rapid spread of information or ideas.
They're still so strikingly relevant, aren't they? They grappled with these questions in such profound ways.
They really did.
And the ideas they explored, from the basic nature of the cosmos right down to defining what constitutes a good life, they continue to shape our conversations today.
Yeah.
There's this notion mentioned in the sources that the sage, rather than the warrior or the saint, was the pinnacle and ideal of Greek life.
That's a deeply provocative thought, isn't it?
It really is. The thinker as the ideal.
How does that compare to the ideals we chase today? What can we maybe learn from a civilization that literally centered its whole existence, or at least its highest aspiration, on the examined life?
A profound question to ponder as you go about your day. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.